Sophie Federica was born on March 5, 1855 in Vienna as the firstborn daughter of Empress Elisabeth and Emperor Franz Joseph. She was named after her grandmother Archduchess Sophie. In 1857, the royal family went for a visit to Hungary, where both Sophie and her younger sister Gizela fell sick. It was believed that the girls were suffering from diarrhea and fever, but it is likely that they caught typhus. When Gizela recovered, Sophie died in her mother's arms, only 2 years old, in Buda. The infant Archduchess was laid to rest in the Capuchin crypt in Vienna. Archduchess Gizela Louise Marie of Austria was born on July 12, 1856, as the second daughter of the Austrian imperial couple. After losing her oldest daughter Sophie, Gizela's mother Elisabeth retreated from her role as a mother and left the education in the hands of her mother-in-law, Archduchess Sophie. Gizela was described as a reserved child who was eager to learn. She had a good relationship with her father, who was fond of his daughter and called her "my darling girl." At only 16 years old, Gizela was married to her second cousin, Prince Leopold of Bavaria. The wedding celebrations were held in Vienna, where her mother Elisabeth was notably absent. Even though the marriage was solely formed for political purposes, it turned out to be fairly happy, and the couple had 4 children, of which all reached adulthood. The family resided in the Palais Leopold in Schwabing, Munich. The court life here was less strict than in Vienna, and Gizela enjoyed accommodating family and friends. She had a good bond with her siblings, but the relationship with her mother remained cold, as Elisabeth refused to stay over at the Bavarian court and rather spent the night at hotels. Gizela spent a lot of her time with charity work, but she also enjoyed riding and hunting. She was a devoted mother and cared about her family. When her grandmother grew older and became ill, Gizela enjoyed visiting her on a regular basis. Life was harmonic at the Bavarian court, when in 1914 World War I broke out. In the beginning, Gizela opened a lazaret for wounded soldiers in their residence, but the family soon had to flee to Bad Ischl. Leopold and Gizela struggled to settle in as normal citizens. The Council of Workers and Soldiers, responsible for distribution of food, called them royal parasites. But the people remembered Gizela's social commitment and what she had done for them, and they did their best to help them out. It is thanks to them that Gizela and Leopold were able to survive as regular citizens. When the revolution broke out in 1918, the rest of the family fled the city, but Gizela remained and took part in the 1919 election for the Weimar National Assembly. It was here that women above the age of 20 were allowed to vote for the very first time. Gizela rose to great popularity and was often called the Angel from Vienna. She became a patron for a number of institutions. Gizela and her husband celebrated their golden wedding anniversary in 1923 back in Munich. Her husband Leopold died on September 28, 1930, and Gizela followed him 2 years later, aged 76, on 27th of July 1932. She is buried next to her husband, Prince Leopold, in Munich. To this day on, many institutions still carry Gizela's name and hold up a legacy as a socially committed royal. On August 21, 1858, the long-hoped-for son and Crown Prince of Austria, Rudolph, was born. He started off being raised alongside his younger sister Gizela, but he was separated from her for his military education at the age of 6. The young Crown Prince had to endure strict drills and physical punishments from his teachers. It is delivered that his teacher, the Earl Gonricourt, used to let Rudolph exercise in the cold for hours, and sometimes woking up with the sound of gunfire. The Crown Prince was a sensitive boy and suffered greatly until his mother intervened and pushed through a more human education style. Rudolph grew to be a liberal young man who was interested in science. This posed a heavy contrast to his conservative father. Rudolph could never live up to the expectations of his father, as he did not represent the strict traditional picture of an emperor. King Franz Joseph found his son to be weak, and he often had disputes with him over political matters. This led to him leaving Rudolph out of any governmental affairs, which resulted in a strained relationship between father and son. Rudolph gained a reputation as a playboy in his early 20s. He had many affairs with beautiful women across Europe until his father stepped in. For dynastical reasons, Rudolph had to marry a suitable royal wife. The Belgian princess Stephanie was the chosen one, and the two got married in 1881. After the wedding, the couple went on vacations and then settled in Prague. Stephanie soon became pregnant and gave birth to their daughter Elisabeth Marie in 1883. As it was often the case, the birth of a girl was a great disappointment, and Rudolph, who thought a son would free him of his marital duties, was quite disappointed. The couple did not have any more children, as it is likely that Rudolph contracted syphilis at a young age and passed it on to his wife, who became infertile as a result. The marriage was a mismatch right from the start. The crown prince was liberal, free-spirited, and somewhat restless, while his wife was conservative, lacked any kind of charm, and enjoyed a homey lifestyle. They often got into arguments when it came to politics and pride of place. Rudolph let himself into writing encyclopedias and corresponding with intellectuals, especially with his dear friend Moritz Schepps, who shared his liberal beliefs. The crown prince grew more and more dissatisfied over time, as he was excluded from reigning and lacked true purpose. His vision of the future became very pessimistic, as he predicted unstable times ahead for Europe. Well, he wasn't too wrong about that. In 1888, Rudolph had a fateful encounter, likely through his cousin Marie Larisch. She introduced the 17-year-old Mary Vetsera, a girl of low aristocratical status, to the crown prince. The two went on to have an affair, which resulted in the tragic events in the hunting lodge Meierling. While the young Mary appeared to be head over heels for the crown prince, Rudolph maintained other affairs on the side. The 3-month affair came to an end when the couple was found deceased in Meierling on January 30, 1889, as a result of an apparent joint suicide. Both had left goodbye letters for their loved ones, but Mary Vetsera's presence in Meierling was strictly denied by the Austrian imperial family. The Viennese court demanded Rudolph's cause of death to be declared as heart attack, but the operating doctors refused and publicly announced the crown prince's suicide. After an abduction, it was concluded that Rudolph suffered from neurological malfunctions, which led to mental confusion and resulted in his suicide. This conclusion allowed the crown prince to be buried with a Catholic ceremony, even though these results are questionable. Rudolph found his peace in the Capuchin crypt on February 5, 1889. Archduchess Mary Valerie Matilda Amalia was born on the 22nd of April, 1868, as the fourth and last child. Her birth was a surprise not only to her family, but also to the people of Austria. The relationship between the Emperor and Empress had been distant. By agreeing to have another child, Elisabeth wanted to honor the Hungarian people, with whom she had a special bond. No royal child had been born in Hungary for several centuries. Maria Valeria was born in Hungary and became the clear favorite of her mother, as Elisabeth demanded to have her around all times while neglecting Gizela and Rudolph completely. Marie Valerie spent most of her childhood with her mother in Hungary, which led to the Austrians calling her the Hungarian child. While Marie Valerie had little problems with her sister Gizela, who was 11 years older than her, she had a difficult relationship with her older brother Rudolph. The crown prince was well aware of the fact that his mother preferred Marie Valerie, and the fact that Elisabeth called her the only one. Marie's diary entries show that she was afraid of her older brother, who was crude and unfriendly towards her. Nevertheless, Marie enjoyed a carefree childhood. She received the best education and went on countless journeys with her mother. She spoke not only German and Hungarian, but also Italian, French, and English. As Marie became older, she felt more and more trapped in her mother's constant presence. Elisabeth smothered the young Archduchess with affection, while the girl grew more to be like her calm father. She was soon bothered by her mother's restless character and longed for the love and attention of the Emperor. Franz Josef loved his daughter deeply, yet he was not famous for openly showing affection. The older Marie became, the more she rejected everything Hungarian. She asked her father to speak German with her instead of Hungarian, like her mother always did. In 1886, she met her future husband, Franz Salvator of Austria-Tuscany, at a ball. The diary of the young Archduchess describes her falling in love with a handsome young man and gaining her mother's approval for her choice. Elisabeth was unhappy at first, since she was afraid to lose her favorite child, but eventually she agreed to give them her blessing. The couple got engaged on Christmas Day, 1888. About a month later, her brother Rudolph committed suicide at Martyn Castle. In her diary, she describes the shock that had the royal family in its grip. Marie Valerie and Franz Salvator married on the 31st July 1890. The couple moved to Lichtenegg Castle in Wales. Their marriage started as a happy one, and the couple welcomed their first child, Elisabeth, in 1892. The marriage produced 10 children, but it turned sour, as Franz Salvator cheated on Marie and had illegitimate children with which he acknowledged over time. In 1897, the couple moved to Walsee Castle. From now on, Marie was known as the Angel of Walsee, as she engaged in charity work. When her mother was murdered in September 1898 in Geneva, Switzerland, Marie was devastated. She immediately joined her sister Gizela in Vienna to comfort her father. During World War I, Mary worked as a nurse. She set up sanatoriums for the wounded soldiers and worked for the Red Cross. In 1924, she became sick and was diagnosed with late-stage lymphoma. The Archduchess died on September 6, 1924, surrounded by a family, aged 56. Marie Valerie is known for a famous diary which describes life at the Habsburg court like no other source of its time. The diary ends before the year 1912. The later diaries have not been made accessible to historians and the public. It is speculated that Marie, who was religious, disposed them as they mentioned the illegitimate children of her husband, but it is more likely that they are still in possession of her family and locked away at Walsee Castle.